What's up? Welcome in. This is both the hardest and probably the most meaningful episode of Hoge Jahns that we've ever done. And it's not going to be what you're used to on Thursdays before games. And there's not going to be any bold predictions or even much talk about the Bears, the Giants this weekend. This is all about our friend Jeff Dickerson, who passed away this week and so courageously battled cancer this past year. He meant so much to us. And last night, assuming you're listening to this on Thursday, a bunch of us who have covered the Bears and have been around Jeff Dickerson got together on Zoom and just talked, because we might as well have gotten together to talk about him instead of crying over our phones, which we've been doing. And this is long, but I think you're going to find out, if you don't already know, about Jeff Dickerson, the man, the friend, the father, the son. Simply the most unselfish person I've ever met in my entire life. So what you're about to listen to, and I encourage you, if you don't usually watch us on YouTube, to maybe watch us on YouTube. But if you don't, it's okay. But we all got together on a Zoom and just talked, which I think we all needed. I know I needed it. And this is that raw conversation as we remember our friend, Jeff Dickerson. So, we have Kevin Fishbane here, JJ Stankovitz, John Moon Mullen, Peggy Kaczynski, Hub Arkish is here. I mean, what a crew this is. I hope everyone's hanging in there, and I guess I'll just start, and we can, I mean, seriously, anyone can chime in at any point with anything. And I just, I keep thinking back to 2019 Bourbonnais, because it was our last training camp. And JD wasn't there the year before because he had taken a leave of absence to take care of Caitlin. And if you think about what he was going through that year, suddenly turning into a single parent, I don't know how anyone can consider Bourbonnais a vacation, but for him, like those couple weeks down there, I just remember, like, every day we were, whatever JD wants to do, we're doing it, because it was his time to, again, it's not really relaxation because she's working, but, for him, he cherished those road trips so much because in a lot of ways, it was his only opportunity to get away from just the reality that he was living through, right? And he never showed how hard it was, but you just knew that it was. And so that last training camp, which at the time we didn't know was going to be the last trip down to Bourbonnais, but it was. And I was thinking about that among many other things today.
I was thinking about the trip to London today. And I didn't go to the Fulham match, but I was trying to explain it to someone because JD, the day after, when we were all at the Tottenham Stadium, like, I felt like I went not to the match, but to the bar after, where, what did the guy say to him in the bathroom? Like, I should have batted you.
Oh yeah.
And, JD, I think I heard JD tell that story to 5 different people.
Well, we had a couple problems that day because those fans are so vicious, JJ, that I was just a stupid tourist, stupid American in the stands, and Charlton, who Fulham was playing, scored a goal right in front of us, and I just had my phone out, like, taking a video of it, and this Fulham supporter behind us was like, "Are you Charlton?" and we all thought like a big fight was about to go down.
I remember JD had to, he made sure to, and Rich actually talked about this on the radio today, that JD was like, I'm all in on Fulham. If Fulham's your club, we're going to the Fulham match. JD was the one that bought all the tickets. JD was the one who got there, found gear for himself, and of course he had to buy a jersey for Parker.
Yep.
I mean, if you go through every road trip, I don't think there's a single road trip where JD did not leave without a jersey to bring home to Parker. And that was like, and I just remember that Fulham, he was like, I'm going to become the biggest Fulham fan there is today of a soccer team he hadn't heard of until that week, just to make sure that Rich, who was the actual Fulham fan, could like even enjoy the experience more.
You know, guys, it's funny. I didn't make the trip, but Arthur and some of my grandsons have been staying here this week because they're having work done on the house, and he didn't realize how sick JD was. And we were talking, I think it was Monday night actually, and all he talked about was that trip, because that was, I think, his first or second year on the beat, and he didn't really know what kind of turf he was on. And he told me this when he came home. He didn't tell me this for the first time, but then it was like JD just stepped up and took him under his wing, made sure he had a ticket, made sure he went with you guys, made sure he knew what the entire drill was. And, you know, it just indicative of everything that I think we've all been talking about the last couple of days. I ended up in this strange place where I've been hosting on a score the last 3 days from 2 to 6. And we were, you know, live yesterday when the ESPN tweet hit. And, you know, somehow, and I realized I wasn't as close to him. I loved him and consider him a dear friend, but not as close as some of you guys. And ended up yesterday and a good part of today almost being like the spokesman, and felt very guilty about it because, you know, it was easy to describe what a special guy he was, but just didn't have a lot of the, you know, really personal stories that you guys have.
Isn't that who JD was, Hub?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know JD as well as Adam did, or Patrick did, or some of the folks who've known him for longer. But like JD made everyone feel like he was your best friend, and he would include you in everything, and it always felt genuine. Like when JD invited you out to dinner, he wanted you to come out to dinner, and he wanted you to drink the wine that he was going to buy for the table.
Guys, it's really unfortunate, but one of my strongest memories is at Caitlin's wake, and got there relatively early because expected a big crowd, and waited in line, and my turn came up, and I got over and we were talking, and I realized after about 5 minutes we were still talking, and the line had like tripled in length. And JD is, he's having a good time, and when you tell me stories about Caitlin and Parker, and it literally, I felt like I got to be almost 10 minutes, and the line was now out the door. And I sat there and I kept looking over my shoulder, and finally he saw me looking at me. He goes, something. I said, Jeff, I feel bad. There's a lot of people waiting. He said, oh, they'll wait. They're all going to get their turn too. Everybody's going to wait. And just, with a big smile, and just kept talking, it was, and as I walked out, saw a lot of mutual friends and acquaintances, and they all knew, I felt bad. They were all smiling, and, just everybody happy to be there for him.
Yeah. I'm blown away by the inclusivity of Jeff. And I'll just relay this really quickly. When I joined the beat in 2018, and, my first act on the beat was the combine. And so I text Jeff, just from having known him through the years, not really well, but, we were friendly. And, he gave me a very thorough, outlook. And he said, but here's the first. He said, Grody, the first thing, though, is you're going to meet us at St. Elmo's. I'm going to get an extra reservation spot for you, and you're going to meet us at St. And I ended up going out with, Fishbane and Rich Campbell and a whole table of guys. And it's funny. Some of you guys may or may not know, but I don't drink. I'm an alcoholic. And Jeff, he knew that, and he went out of his way, the whole night. It's like, hey, girl, are you sure you're comfortable with us drinking? I'm like, Jeff, it's all good. But it was touching. And at that point, I knew what he was all about. And I do wish that I knew him better. And I'm also so sorry to some of you other guys on this call that do know him so well. And my genuine sympathies go out to you. And he just, I'm blown away by all the things that you guys have written and what everybody's written. So that's kind of that's where it starts for me with JD.
I want to say something because I think Moon, you and I may have contributed to corrupting JD with good wine on the road.
That's mean. What you mean? That is mean.
I know.
You're teasing everybody. Come on.
I'm sorry. I have to tell you guys how this started. So JD was young and we were at ESPN radio, and this had to be, oh my gosh, 15, 17 years ago. And my husband said, why don't we take some of your coworkers out to dinner? And we went to Rush Street, and we were going out to dinner, and JD actually tried to help pay the bill. And we were like, no, this is good. This is like, don't worry about it. We're good. And he was like, oh, no. I do not drink bad wine. And I thought, uh-oh, this is someone I can totally corrupt on the road. And I didn't know I was going to end up working at NBC. I was working at ESPN at the time. And we would go on the road. Moon, man, how many times would we just like sit in the lobby and buy a great bottle of wine? And JD would walk over and we'd end up arguing over Pinot versus Cab versus, Bordeaux. And he was a Pinot man, and I'm not a Pinot person. And he would be like, come on, Peg, you're not going to give up. You're not going to turn down a good glass of wine just because you don't like. I go, yeah, actually, it's okay to do that. He was so accepting of everything that I just remember thinking, this guy is like, is he for real? Is this real? Is this like a facade? And then, when I came full circle working for Channel 5 and came back into the whole media room, like he was the same person that was the young kid that, had worked for McNeil and wasn't scarred and was still just as positive as he could possibly be. I mean, seriously, it just, truly, you guys, we're really lucky to have. I mean, Adam, think about last week when he was looking at us going, you guys, I feel good. Don't I look good? I look good, right? And you're just kind of thinking, yeah, JD, you look great. You look great. Just, a page that we can all take to live the rest of our lives. Truly, we were not really realizing how lucky we have been.
Yeah, Peggy and I were both there at his house last Wednesday, like literally just before they were coming to take him to hospice. And man, what Peggy's saying is still so true. I couldn't, even then, he had so much strength. And even though, in the room, you knew he was getting more and more tired. And, he was starting to doze off a little bit while we were talking to him. But then he would just like snap out of it and it'd be like, I'm good. I'm ready to rock and roll. That's what he said. And he's like, I'm coming home. And he's like, he kept trying to, this isn't the type of place where they just, shove you in a closet and die. No, they're going to take care of me there. And I'm going to make it to the 28th and we're going to beat this thing. I don't have and that's something he told me so many times over the last few months. I'm going to beat this. I don't have a choice. And even that, cause I left for Seattle with my family the next day, we knew what was going on. And I think he probably did too. But even in those moments, he was still just thinking about us. And I just, like Peggy, when you came in, it was the same thing he had just said to me 5 minutes before. It's like, don't freak out. It's going to be okay. But they're moving me to hospice. it's been hard on my parents, and I'm going to do this, and it's going to make it easier on them, but everything's going to be okay. Everything, and it's just like it was crushing. But
yeah, it was crushing. And his mom, Sandy, said to me when we were leaving, I feel like I'm lying to my son. And I mean, I took her shoulders and I said, stop it. I said, you are doing what every parent would do for their child, and that is protect them and comfort them. And if that's what he needs to think, then that's what he needs to think, because that's how Jeff lived his life, was in the positive. And like, that's okay. There is nothing wrong with that. Yeah, you guys, man, he was really, yeah.
Guys, unfortunately, if we live long enough, we're all going to deal with experiences like this relative to Jeff's family. And we've been through it a few times in the last 5-6 years with literally 3 different family members. And one of the most remarkable things about Jeff is really his support system, and the way they've gotten through this, and the way they got through Caitlin, and the way he handled Parker up to this point. Yeah, I don't know his families, but I mean, I know what they were going through. I can tell you that. And there's no good answer except exactly what Peggy just said. And the best answer was Jeff. I mean, that's the most remarkable thing about it, was that, right up to the end, he's the one that was taking care of everybody else. And you just don't meet people like that. I mean, it's really, we're actually, we're going through it with my brother right now, and he is the opposite of Jeff, for whatever that's worth. And I love him to death, and that's all great. But you really, when you have to see some of this, and unfortunately we all do. Yeah, I'm just that much more blown away by JD, and really unlike anybody I've ever known.
Hi, Adam Hoge, by the way.
Hi guys, Pat Finley's here as well.
What's up, guys? Hi, Peggy. I don't know whether this has been brought up, but I mean, Hoge, when we saw him 10 days ago, how much time did he spend telling us not to worry about him? Most of the time. Like, it was, it was almost as though he wouldn't let us leave until we believed that that everything was going to be okay, and that there was no other option. It wasn't, hey, you got to trust me on this. It was, guys, look me in the eye. We're fine. Yes. Yeah. And it meant so much to him for us to be less aggrieved. And I don't know many people who would have done it.
I keep coming back to it too. Everybody who's close to him has the same story of the last month, the last weeks, the last days, as he was trying to build up hope and keep them encouraged and be positive, be JD. And everybody, I've heard now, I don't know, like tens, maybe hundreds of stories at this point of friends of his, and, listening to, to his colleagues on 1000 today, telling it so beautifully. And it just, every story was the same. It was him being positive, inspiring hope. And it adds up to the person we got to know and love. And it blows me away.
Can I just ask something, you guys? Like, let's be real right now. With this, Parker's fund is at almost $750,000. Let's talk about what JD, how he did his job to the point to get so many people to respect him, to donate like this. Like, it is. My son keeps going like this to me. He's like, oh my God, Mom, look at this. Look at this. Jeffrey Lurie, Tom Ricketts, Theo Epstein, the Blackhawks Foundation, the Bears just put in the 25,000. Someone did an anonymous 60,000. Like, I would love to hear, because you guys are all reporters. What was it about JD? He had the connections. And yet, not everything was good. And yet he got the respect of everybody. Like, how did he do this? How did he make such an impression?
Hey, one thing to add really quick too, guys. I don't know if you guys have been watching the Bulls game or not, but they did a moment of silence apparently at the United Center, which just blew me away to hear that. That, to your point, Peggy.
Yeah. You know what it is, Peg? He made everyone feel like they were his best friend. You know, I think he just did. It was whether you talked to him one time or you got to know his entire family. That's what he did, and so that's why there's this much support. I could also tell he's probably losing his mind over it and going, whatever you do to not give this money to Parker right now, he's going to spend it on everything. It'll be gone, and, you know. But you know, look. There's just so much crap right now in this world that we're all living with on a day-to-day basis, and you know, we all want JD to be here, but if there's one silver lining is just to see the humanity today with this fund in the last 24 hours and just the constant support.
I shared this on, sorry, Adam, ESPN 1000 a couple hours ago. JD brought the Chicago Sun-Times and the Chicago Tribune together. Pat knows what I mean.
Johns, it was the first year I was there in 2014 or 2013 in Pittsburgh. Was that the last relationship between the Sun-Times and the Tribune wound up with somebody trying to fight somebody in a parking lot or something?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So when I joined that beat, it was so contentious. Now JD was JD, but it was contentious. But I mean, I just thought about year after year from. He would split dinners at St. Elmo's, right? He would have, you know, Zach was always by his side, but, you know, Tribune one night, sometimes the next night. You know, Kevin was like the, I don't know, like.
Kevin floated. Kevin got to float.
He was a floater, yeah. He went back and forth. But, like, then, like, flash forward 3 years later, there's all of us together. Sun-Times, Tribune, NBC Sports, as competitive as we were, as driven as we were. There's 8 of us at the Hibachi Grill in Kankakee, right? The Hibachi Grill at the mall in Kankakee. They're shooting sake shots in their mouths, and we're all together. You know, like JD loved that. Like JD would have like the sake like dripping down his mouth onto his shirt, you know, and like the smile, but like we were all there. Like here comes Dan. Like we were all there, you know. Like I'll remember that. You know, he brought people together. That's who he was, and you know, I think people naturally gravitated towards him, and you know, you just felt better when you were around him.
Well,
Adam, let's not forget that TV people weren't allowed at those either.
That's what I was just about to say, Peggy. Is one of the few things I remember from the New Orleans trip is the room spinning at Anthem. But across from me at this dinner, it's Ike, you know, the great WGN photog, and Eric Fogel are across from me. And, you know, here's a bunch of beat writers out with some of the best camera guys in the biz, but JD brought everyone together. It wasn't just the beat writers. It was the TV folks and the camera guys. And it was incredible. And that was about the only other thing I remember from that night.
I told that, JJ, I told that story.
Bob Seger, but
yeah, I don't remember that.
I told that story on 1000 today because I got there before you guys and I see the table and I just see the photogs. So I'm saying hello to everybody. And I'm like, I'm going to go wait for JD. I'm at his reservation. And they looked at me like I was an idiot. They're like, hello, we're all here for JD's reservation. Like he booked the biggest table in the restaurant and then organized a tour for us afterward. And I think Hoge, you know, you said it that he just made everybody feel like his best friend. Courtney Cronin, who I don't know personally, who's the Vikings writer for ESPN. You should go read what she wrote about him. You know, Jade has no idea who she is. She just starts on the beat. She's doing a stand-up at Soldier Field before Monday night game, and he's right there. And he's giving her tips and helping her out and giving her advice and being her biggest fan. Like that's who he was. Like when we went to the combine with him, JD knew everybody. He knew Schefter. He knew like if he wanted to hang out with like a big time agent or go hang out with some former coaches who were there, he could. Like, but he always wanted to be, well, the beat one night and then NFL Nation night 2, and then the beat that he didn't go out with on the first night on the third night. And that's who he was. He made everybody feel like the amount of people who have poured out, like everyone thinks they're closer to JD than maybe they actually were. But I think that says a lot more about him because he just made everybody feel great.
Yeah. Kev, I was telling my wife tonight that, my dad was a sports writer when I was a little boy. And I know that being a sports writer is hard on your family. Like when it was clear I was going to marry my wife, like my mom pulled her aside and was like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Which I still appreciate. But
that wasn't about that though, Pat.
No, it was just in general. Yeah, it was just a joke. But the fact that, and I realize baseball and basketball and there are other beats that have it worse than we do, but it's not easy to have little kids and to do this. And, we spent a New Year's Eve with Parker and Caitlin. There were nights when, any Saturday night when you were missing your family and you felt far away, like JD was your family. Like JD was the one with the dinner table telling you to show up at 7:00. And he was the one ordering the nice bottle of wine and the one sitting there and wanting to talk to you about anything but the game tomorrow. And that was so rare, but it made you feel like you were part of a gathering that you would ordinarily be missing out on because you had to pick up and leave, 10 Saturdays a year.
Guys, in trying to come up with the ultimate to Jeff, I've been sitting here feeling guilty ever since Peggy brought up the GoFundMe page, because we were sitting here a few hours ago and Arthur saw the $25K from the Colts. And so we started a pool on what the Bears would do. And I had them at $100 in a hoodie to auction off. So I guess I screwed up on that one.
Listen, we were all hoping that they were one of the anonymous donors.
Yeah.
But once you saw what the other teams were doing, God bless they came through. It was fantastic that they're doing.
And by the way, it's in good fun for Jeff. I know my rep in town, I'm the homer and everything else, and we all know who the family is. At their hearts, I think in a moment like this, you see who they are. Let's forget all the football shit. And at the same time, but it really, it's Jeff. It wouldn't happen for all of us. I know that.
Oh, hell no,
guys! I was for whatever it's worth. I was taken by Matt today. I don't, 4 years later, I'm not sure I know the guy, but that I thought was pretty genuine, and when he was asked the question about Parker, we actually talked about this on the air that was genuine emotion. And, I don't know a lot of guys that get through to a coach like that. And even with this coach, there's just different ways to measure JD, and he keeps coming out on top on all of them.
I was thinking about the fact that Nagy and Jeff are the same age, the same year. And that's, I don't know, it just struck me. I'm a year younger than Jeff and Matt. So I'm so used to, in my mind, always the coaches and managers being so much older, and then it kind of hit me, and I'm sure it hit him, the way it's hit all of us with kids. I think it's hit us a little extra hard for that. Just thinking about Parker.
Well, John, I asked that question to Matt because, just being in that same boat of being the same age, being a proud dad, being committed to a career, trying to balance all those things. And I knew that Matt was genuinely affected by what Jeff had battled through and obviously what had happened yesterday. And I was curious, I wanted to get his perspective and response to how it affected him, and the fact that he couldn't answer the question because he was fighting back emotions. It was so sincere and genuine. It tells you a lot about Jeff. And he, as you guys know, a lot of us are around the similar age. We have similar sacrifices that we make with our children to do this job. And Jeff did it with more grace and more perspective and more balance than I certainly can ever muster. And it's an example for me in my every week life to try to channel some Jeff into retaining that perspective and that grace and that balance. One of the things that I always talk about is you guys know me and know how pissed off I can get at things that happen in the media room, that happen on the beat and things like that.
No,
stop. Come on. You guys have all seen an incident or two where I've blown my top, and Rich Campbell and I used to have the same sort of wiring, and JD would come over to our cubicle and he'd just stand there at the end of the afternoon and go, guys, we're covering a football team. Like, just relax, go home, be with your wives, break open a bottle of wine. It's okay. And it was that reminder that you needed, that you knew, but it was just like, all right, give it to me, Jeff. Tell me.
It was like Kevin, a couple of days ago before Jeff passed, Kevin and I were texting about some stuff, and he was texting me the updates on Jeff, and I go, it really just makes this Bears stuff seem like really silly, like that I'm, whatever I'm writing on. I think I stopped writing when I was writing. And he goes, I can hear JD's voice booming through the Hallis Hall, media room, like, guys, they're going to fuck it up. They're the Bears. It's okay. It's going to happen. Just relax.
Yeah, John, it's that voice, man. Like, it's like they were playing it all day on 1000 a day. And it was just like, it's so vintage JD, but then you're like, oh my God, like, I can't believe that's the last
gone. I know
we're going to hear of them. And it's just, it carves right through you, when you hear it. And like, I love people doing the impression, because everybody has got a similar impression. And Pat brought up the wine earlier. Another favorite impression of mine of Jeff is no matter when you sat down to dinner with him, he would grab the wine list and he'd start looking at the bottles, and he'd say, all right, guys, I've got the wine. Don't worry about the wine. I got it. And then he picked some really expensive bottle, and he just wanted you to know, I'm covering that. So don't worry about that. We're going to drink a couple nice bottles of wine. We're going to have a great time tonight. Everyone's invited. And that was it.
Can I tell you something that's really interesting about Dan? Is Jeff Jonia called me last night, and I texted Kevin, I texted you. I was just like, gosh, you guys, I was really struggling coming up with, everyone had these great stories, and I'm listening, and I had brain fog. I could not remember a single story about JD, and I can't go on the radio. What am I going to say? Like, I don't remember anything except being with him. And then you guys all started saying the wine. It was like, Jeff Jonia calls me last night. He goes, I just got to tell you, he goes, I take my job so seriously. And then I'll never forget hanging with you and JD in Detroit. You remember that, right? You remember that? And I'm like, no, I don't remember it. And he's like, you guys had a great bottle of wine. And I'm like, that was what we always did. Like,
that doesn't narrow it down one bit. Yeah.
No, but that's when it hit me that we could escape. We could escape, our deadlines and the competition and all that, and just sit back and enjoy a great glass of wine. And I was like, it's so simple, but we get caught up, and I'm removed now from it, you guys. And I'm telling you, it was so good to be able to look back and be able to say, the point of always taking a step back and enjoying a good glass. Otherwise it was crazy. And Moon was a part of it. Me, JD, and Moon, we were the originals of the good wine, and it just really, that was a great lesson for me this morning when I kept looking back, and I was like, shouldn't I have a story? Shouldn't I have something funny to say? And I was like, I don't think I have anything funny to say. And then I was like, oh my God, it was really just about the camaraderie. And then, how many people were texting and saying, you guys are all competitors, but the camaraderie that keeps coming through from everyone's stories is unbelievable. And I guess it's just, it's like the guys we cover. You know, what do they say when they retire? They miss the camaraderie. They miss the locker room. And that's what, like, this, Adam, thank you very much for organizing, because this, like, is truly, like, in the end, this is what it was all about, you know, not the story.
Isn't this a lot different? Like, there's a few of us on here, you know, Moon and Hub and me and you that predate, like, you know, I started in 2009, and I think that's before a lot of people on this call, you know, kind of got on the beat. And it was a different beat before, like, the younger group of writers. It was, I was shocked. It was like a really nasty kind of, like, mean competition. I mean, there was not a lot of camaraderie on the road. Like, you guys would go out, I know. It was a different time, but even then, everyone liked Jeff. Like, even then, when everyone was, I mean, it was mean, and, like, Jeff still stood alone. Usually he didn't stand alone. He usually stood with Zach somewhere in the room, and they would be talking. But
wait, I don't know if anyone on this call was, John, you're so right. We were in Carolina one year, and you know, we would always meet in, like, the hotel bar, and we go down to the hotel bar, and I'm kind of like, hey, what's the plans? What's everyone doing? I mean, this had to be 15 years ago, and no one's saying anything, and no one's saying anything, and no one's saying anything. And I was like, what's going, like, okay, I guess I'm not invited to dinner. What's going on? Everybody was going to a strip club, and they didn't want to tell me that they were all going to a strip club. And so I was just like, well, I can do that. Like, I can hang. Like, it's okay, unless you guys got something to hide when you go to the strip club. So, but
Peggy, did you go?
John,
Peggy, did you go?
I did go. Yes. Now, I won't tell you my impression of the people that did imbibe, but John is exactly right. It was very exclusive. It was not inclusive. It was not like like JD was a different cat to invite everyone the way he did. It was not like that 15 years ago. Absolutely not.
I think we would all agree that he's a big reason why it changed. Because
Adam,
that's just not the beat I know.
I was just going to say he was probably primarily responsible for it. It was funny because when Peggy was talking about being the one who corrupted JD, I don't know if she remembers this, but I may be the one who corrupted her. We were way back in the day. Our routine was the broadcast team and our engineers and producers would go out, and we always, you know, welcomed anybody who wanted to join, but not everybody was in the same hotel. But this was the mid 90s, and we're in Secaucus, you know, with the old Meadowlands, and we're organizing for our usual dinner. And Peggy, I don't know how long you'd been, you know, on the beat at that point, but she comes down in the lobby, and I saw her kind of standing over, and I didn't know exactly what you were doing, and we were getting ready to go. And I just said, hey, you know, Peg, we're going out to dinner. You got anybody to have dinner with? And she looked at me and said, well, come on, you know, let's go. And I don't know if you remember this night, but we went to some old Italian joint about a mile from the Marriott, right across the street from the Meadowlands. And at the table across from us was Virginia and Michael and Muggs Hallis's two kids who lived in New Jersey. And they were negotiating the deal where the Bears were buying out their minority share. We didn't pay. I found that out later. We didn't pay any attention to any of that. Yeah. But that crew, that particular group you were with, that was Wayne and myself and the Zerang boys, and Hamp was with us, and we drank a little bit. Let's just say that. And so it was a fun night, but there wasn't a lot of that. And then again, I'm just a lot older than you guys, and so I sometimes just didn't want to go because I felt I'd cramp everybody's style. But it was pretty clear to me, you know, once we went to Bourbonnais, what was going on. And Jeff must have invited me 1,000 times. And you know, I hope nobody ever thought I didn't go because I didn't want to. It's because I was afraid that you were just being polite, and I didn't want to ruin everybody's night. And JD never gave up. You know, whenever we were there, always the invite. And the best times were the few times that I did go.
Can we talk more about the New Orleans trip? Because Jones wrote about it.
Can I just bring up one real quick thing on New Orleans?
Can remember, yeah.
Right. So here's where I come in on New Orleans, because I had a Northwestern game, and it was like a 2:30 game, I think. And so I missed out on most of New Orleans because I had a later flight. And on top of that, I almost missed that flight because Northwestern and Michigan State decided to play in a triple overtime. Shout out to Nate Hall on the interception, right, Kevin Fishbane? We're not giving you your 15 seconds on Northwestern on this one. So I get on the flight. I just barely made it, and I get down there, and all I wanted to do, by far the biggest negative to me of doing the Northwestern gig for those 6 years was all the Saturdays I would miss with you guys sometimes with the later games. So anyway, I did not care what time it was. It did not matter to me. I got to my hotel. They didn't have my room ready. How they didn't have my room ready at midnight or whatever time it was unbelievable. So I'm all upset. And JD, you got to get out here. Don't care. You got to get out here. So I come find you guys on Bourbon Street. None of you had any idea what the hell was going on.
Oh.
Okay. And all of a sudden I turned into like a dad because I was like, guys, we have a game in the morning. You all need to go home right now. And like that was my experience of New Orleans, was showing up and basically cleaning up for all of JD's damage that he had done to you guys.
Yeah. So here's go ahead, Pat.
I had to text Johns today to tell him the name of the restaurant. That's how much fun we had.
I forgot it.
I remembered it because Johns wrote it. But so the damage happened.
No, Johns wrote that he didn't know the name of the restaurant, which is why I texted.
Oh, that's right. Okay. But so the damage happened because, Pat, you and I met up with him at the hotel bar, and we got beers to go to Patio O'Brien's.
We watched the end of a Northwestern Michigan State game at the hotel.
Yeah, I remember that.
And Peggy talking about, how inclusive JD was with everything. So this was Colleen Kane's first road trip with the trip. And I had known her from covering the White Sox. We'd spent some time in, clubhouses together and stuff. So JD's like, yeah, text Colleen, have her come out. So she meets us at Patio O'Brien's. We all get a hurricane because, of course. And, one hurricane on an empty stomach will do a little bit of damage. And it's like, all right, dinner's at 8. I thought JD said dinner was at 7. JD goes, all right, well, we got to go get a hurricane on the way to dinner, or a hand grenade, excuse me. And I'm like, no, we don't. And JD goes, but it's New Orleans. And he kept saying that. And I mean, we're walking down Bourbon Street. We stop at the place to get hand grenades. I'm like, JD, this is a bad idea, but it's New Orleans. So, drink the hand grenade on the way to dinner, go to a bar.
For the record, we got hurricanes and then hand grenades.
Yes.
It wasn't one or the other. We went in order.
Exactly. Right. We all drank our hurricanes at Pat O'Brien's and then got hand grenades on the way to a bar to go there before dinner. So that's when I said earlier, the room was spinning at Antoine's, and I'm looking at Ike, and Ike is like, like he's on the Titanic about to like tip over. That's what it was. And JD the whole time, but it's New Orleans, but it's New Orleans. And then the next day, and Johns, you wrote about this, in the press box at the Superdome, which is the worst place to be hungover in the United States of America, is the press box at the Superdome. And I get in there, Pat, I think I rode with you and Potsy to the game, and we get in there and we're all just wrecked. And there's JD in his suit and tie. He's been there for a while. Hey guys, how you doing? I'm just like, how do you, I think I looked at him.
Last night never happened.
Yeah. I looked at him and I said,
he always did that, by the way. Always. Yeah. I don't know how he did it, but he always did it.
I looked at him and I said, if you fucking say, but it's New Orleans one more time, I'm going to throw you off this press box.
Well, JJ, what I remember about that day was that Fats Domino had died that week. So every piece of audio they played in the stadium was a Fats Domino song. Mm-hmm. And it was also, we were right under the air conditioning duct. Yeah. So what do you think it is in the press box? 57 degrees, something like that. So yeah, my enduring memory of that day was Fats Domino songs being piped into our faces and just shivering and being a complete mess.
They cut the lights, Pat, for the Saints to run on the field to a Fats Domino song. And I remember thinking, I'm going to pass out.
That was JD, though. That was the other side of the social JD, is every Sunday morning, he's the first one there in his suit if he's going to be on TV, and he is the happiest guy in the press box. He's happy to greet you. Well, let's put it. Usually there's another Bears beat writer who's there just as early, but he's not as jovial about greeting people who walk into the press box. And JD was, and you would be like, I was with you till 2 a.m. last night. I remember Philadelphia. Maybe that was 20. And we went to some dive bar.
The underground bar?
Oh, yeah, we went to a club. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Like, there's JD the next morning, and that's what really was so painful about. He wanted to be JD all the way to the end, and when we were in Vegas, like he was struggling, and the meds were just messing with him, and he just wasn't feeling great, but he didn't want to let that on. And I remember being tired. Like I wanted to go back to the hotel, but we all wanted to stay out. And he kept apologizing. And we're like, that was JD. Like he wanted to just be JD all the way through. He wanted to make that a Vegas night, even though physically he couldn't do it.
Yeah. Kev, he cashed out at like 11:30 at night and like could not be more upset about it. And we're like, dude, it's Vegas.
Thrilled. I wanted to go back home at that point.
Yeah, well, yeah, and then Hoge and Potsy and I went and saw him in Tampa. And Hoge, what time was our dinner reservation? 10 p.m., something like that.
Well, we went through a 3-hour. Good night, Mark Grody. Thank you so much for being here. Mark's going to sign off. He's got to do a radio show at like 4 a.m.
Yeah. Yes, I have the distinction of being Mully and Haw tomorrow morning. So thanks a lot,
both
Adam.
of them?
Wait, you have to be both of them? That's
No.
Wow.
I'm
Pick
one of two.
Pick one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Make sure you wear your flannel and
Can you give us a good Mully before you go?
He broke the Zoom. He screamed so loud he broke it.
He broke his phone.
Wear your flag and anthem and no. Thank you so much, Groats.
Yeah, thanks for doing it, guys. And again, I like I said earlier, I'm overwhelmed by the tightness that you guys had with him, and I love hearing the stories and everything that every one of you guys and gals has written. So thank you, and I appreciate you guys including me too. So have a great night, guys.
Thanks, Mark. So, Pat, back to Vegas. What was it you just said?
No, it was in Tampa. You and Hoge, you and JD were so late. You and JD were so late on your flight that
we had
like 10 p.m.
Well, first of all, JD and I flew together often because we're like the only two that fly American. Well, Dan does too. Dan flies American too a lot of times. So a lot of times we're on the same flights. That day, we were having the worst luck this season. It's like every damn trip. It's it's COVID, it's staffing issues, it's lack of flights, all this stuff that's going on this year. And we had a 3-hour delay, which was like the second time in a couple of weeks we had like a 3-hour delay, and there was so many small signs. That was one of them. That trip where things were starting to decline a little bit, and but that was one of them. And we were supposed to meet up with the ESPN 1000 crew that was going out there. Sylvie and Carm and Danny Zetterman had gone out there with their kids, and that was the plan. And our flight got delayed so much that we couldn't do that. And there was this place called Oyster Catchers. So JD, every time we went to Tampa, stayed at the Hyatt, which is this amazing resort on the water. And there was this place called Oyster Catchers there that was just like the greatest seafood place. He loved it. He loved going there. And so as soon as the first plans changed, it was like, all right, we're going to Oyster Catchers. This is what we're doing. And our reservation was late, and it didn't matter. And Potsy was there too. So I didn't mean to take over your story there, Pat, but we had a late reservation. And
there were two things I remember about that trip. About that dinner. One of them was that you got some sort of old fashioned that had smoke in it.
Oh yeah, the smoke literally came out of it.
But I remember that Jeff wanted to walk us back to the hotel through a little patch of essentially jungle that had a boardwalk through it that he and his wife and Parker had walked through back when they had stayed there. And he was just telling me how cool. He was telling us how cool it was. And, we went through in pitch black, and it was It was great. And we got back to the lobby and he put us in a car. And I remember the next day, Hoge, him telling us that he had to go back to that same lobby and ask, a doorman to button his dress shirt for him because his fingers didn't work anymore. And I think you and I buttoned his sleeves for him in the press box because his fingers were being affected by the treatment that he had. And there was such a nobility about the way that he handled all of this that I remember being secretly crushed by the fact that he had to go find a stranger to help him with his dress shirt.
Yeah, that one hurt, Pat. I still remember that. And then, Dan, I wanted to bring up, too, in Vegas, we had he felt bad. So you guys brought up how he went to bed the night before the game. This was just so JD. So I was supposed to I scheduled an early flight out that day to hang out with you guys. And especially Jeff, I can't help but feel some of this guilt because I know not everybody knew what was going on this year and that's the way he wanted it. But, I did. And I just feel like there's all these moments where I got to kind of understand what was going on and cherish him a little bit more because deep down I kind of knew what was happening. But one of them was just like, I really wanted to be out there for him. And so my flight gets canceled. The luck we kept. Right, yeah. By the way, shout out to the pilot yesterday. I let James sit in the cockpit before the flight because that was awesome. Yes, and we have a sweet photo, and I'll share it because that's amazing. But yeah, it's been a rough year travel-wise. Anyway, no one wants to hear that complaining. My flight got canceled in the morning, so I didn't show up until 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and he had already gone to bed. And again, like those tiny red flags, like that was one of them because that just, you guys know that it's not JD. I was like, oh, he's already in bed. Like, oh man, he just really must not be feeling well. So the next day after the game, Dan and I, we managed to have just a great dinner with him, which was sort of planned. We didn't really know where we were going. We ended up at this tapas place and spent way too much money on way too little food that was still really, really tasty. That's where Pat comes in with a stupid joke. And you're due for one of those every time. Okay. I apologize. Maybe it was a topless joint. I didn't know. No, it was tapas. And sorry. Dan, you can pick up too. It was just we had this nice dinner, which was amazing food, bottles of wine, of course, and
Guys, I got the wine. Don't worry about it. I got the wine tonight. Same thing. We were at the Aria, and we stayed for probably an hour and a half after we were done eating, Hoge, right? And it was just kind of just catching up on fatherhood and the Bears and just general life topics. And that was when it was, smooth and it just felt good to connect. Right. And that was Jeff's nature, is like, he was going through so much and yet was always just asking more questions about you and your family than you were ever asking about him. And I've said it a number of times the last couple of days that you're aware over these last 3 months of everything he was dealing with, but he almost gave everybody a false sense of security because he was so damn tough and so capable of being positive through everything that, you just sat there and thought to yourself, JD's got this. If anybody is going to have the positive energy and the mental fortitude and just the overall toughness to get through this, JD's got this. And so you just, even as the struggles added up, you're just like, this is just a speed bump for Jeff. And for me, it's like the last couple of months, I felt numb kind of dealing with this. And then yesterday it just came pouring out like a waterfall for hours, really, because it was like, no, like that reality is too much for me to swallow. It doesn't make any sense because of how good he was doing for so many months. I mean, if you guys went to anything with him over the spring or summer, I mean, he looked exactly the same. They had taken out a giant section of his colon and, sewed him back together, and you wouldn't have ever been able to notice. Right. And so you're just sitting there and you're like, Jeff's got this. And so all of that, it just doesn't make sense now to process what the end result was.
You know what I'm going to miss? Sorry, Dan, hearing you do your impersonation of JD, all his impressions of everybody else. So I would think of the good moments, and John, you wrote it in your column today, or our compilation of things. Just, he can impersonate anybody. His Ryan Pace was very good. His Mark Silverman was my favorite, though.
Sylvie's really good. He did a good, a lot of people we worked for. He did a really good Roman Madrowski. Not a lot of people were asking for Roman Madrowski impressions, but
he did a good Fred Hubner.
Yeah, great Fred Hubner.
He did. I told Fred that on the air tonight. I said, Fred, I hope you know that JD did a great Fred Hubner impression, and you should take that as a compliment.
Oh man, he did. We used to do so many, and that was the lead of my column. I didn't want to say what it was, but he was doing an impression of Lovey.
Oh yeah,
and getting fired. Because it was the end of the 2012 season, and it was Lovey talk. It was 15 different people talking, Ted Phillips and everyone just kind of interacting.
And he would work it into stories. One
of my favorite JD stories that he told was the Marion Barber game. And he told the story about being in the elevator with Jerry Angelo, and Jerry being like, Jeff, why didn't he just go down? And I'm doing a disservice. JD's telling the story, I'm sure it was at dinner somewhere on the road, and just talking about how Jerry Angelo's just pleading to JD, what was Marion Barber thinking? And those impressions that he did, so Dan tweeted this earlier, but his tweet, which was, and Emma gets credit for finding this, it was December 18, 2017. He wrote, yes. Bears coach John Fox doesn't have updates on anything. That was perfect, JD, because he was being professional and telling you exactly what we learned at the press conference, while also showing his absolute contempt for John Fox. And
Kevin,
and laughing.
I want to give somebody the assignment over the next, you can take 3 months if you need to, but going through the entirety of JD's Twitter account for 10 years and finding all these gems that we could put on a poster somewhere, because I would pee my pants laughing. I was laughing when I saw that one this morning. There was another one that Zach Zaidman sent out, and it was just at Zach Zaidman, delete your account. And right above it was Zach's tweet, which said, Mike Glennon stands tall in the pocket, which was just the classic interaction between those two, where it's just it could not have been more vintage. And you just know there's hundreds of those in that account that somebody that doesn't have a lot of work to do, probably some of you guys at The Athletic, can go through and dig up and find.
I remember that one, the tweet about Fox, late 17, sitting next to him in that meeting room, and I almost lost it. I was completely lost it because I knew exactly what he was thinking, what was going through his head, and that one stuck with me still. That one came to me last night just because I remember that moment. It's just vintage JD.
And it was still true. That was a factual tweet. It was he did not have an update on anything. So yeah.
Adam, how about last Wednesday when I told JD that I ran into Foxy here in Florida? And I told him the story how we were at this boat bar, this dive boat bar, and this guy is like, hey, I know everybody in the bar. Who do you want to know? And I was just like, whatever. And he goes, yeah, Brian Urlacher. He's got a boat over here. And he goes, you know Brian Urlacher? I'm like, yeah, I know Brian Urlacher. He's like, I got his number. It's right here. I go, yeah, I got it too. I go, that's okay. He goes, what about John Fox? You know John Fox? I'm like, yeah, I know John Fox. And he goes, he's right there. And I go, oh shit, I got to put my sunglasses on. I got no makeup on. I'm like, I got to go say hi to Foxy because he's one of the reasons I was so frustrated with that beat and that season. So I walk over and I'm telling JD, and Adam's sitting there in the room too. I said, I go over and I'm like, John, hey, they'll let anyone in here. And he's just kind of looking at me like, oh, hey, yeah, you're right. You're okay. And I said, so, what's going on? He's like, oh, these are my kids. And he's going on and on. I talked to him for 15 minutes. I'm quite sure he had no idea who I was. He was so wasted. He had been on his boat all day with his family. The girls are dancing in their bikinis at this bar. They're like 3 sheets to the wind. They were wasted. And I'm telling the story like I'm telling you guys right now. And I look over and JD is just going, Foxy.
We all know that expression. We all know that JD expression.
Peggy, were you in Marco?
Yeah. We bought a place here last year.
Oh God! Oh, awesome. My wife and kid and I were down there a little bit south of Marco, and we were on a boat with the captain that we know, and he was like, "Did you know that Brian Urlacher has a boat down here?" We said, "Yeah," and he started telling us about the boat, and then he said, "Did you know that John Fox has a boat down here?"
It's got to be the same captain.
It might be, but they were telling us about John Fox, and their scouting report on John Fox was no different than the one you just gave.
Yeah,
my favorite part of you telling that story though was when you were telling it to JD. All I could think about is like, we joke around about what would happen if we ever ran into John Fox in Marco Island. That's the story we joke around about, but it actually happened to you, like exactly how I would write it if it was fiction, but it actually happened.
And I swear to God, I was like, everyone kept telling me, John Fox is here. John Fox is here. John Fox is here. I'm like, all right. Well, it's a small island. I knew eventually I was going to run into him. Oh my God. It lived up to everything I thought it would be, which ended up to be nothing. Which was pretty much his time in Chicago. So
you remember, Peg, the Lovey, when Lovey pulled JD in a meeting room and started arguing with him? Do you remember that story? Yeah. And it was like, I don't kind of want to say everything that happened in it, but it was like Lovey was really giving it to him and said something really weird to him. And JD kind of gave it back to Lovey. And, and enough so that Lovey was kind of like, okay, I got it. And then the word filtered around to all the players that JD kind of stuck up, against Lovey, because Lovey, has this rep amongst people that don't know him because, Peanut loves him and Lance and Brian, but the rest of the guys on the team, not so much, because he would call them in the office and kind of threaten them with stuff and, with their contracts and playing time. So I remember that day, and a lot of guys on the team were like really impressed with JD that he kind of gave it back to him that day.
Right back. He got called into the principal's office. That was the notorious principal's office, getting called into Lovey's office.
Yeah, I remember Des Clark giving me the description of what it was like.
Guys, I said this morning at 8:00, like the idea of all of what has come out today on so many different platforms and stations and everything else, like JD would have hated today for himself, right? Like he would have tried to cut this off, 4 minutes after it started, saying, guys, come on, like let's just talk about something else for a little while. And initially you feel kind of awkward because how much he didn't want that spotlight. And like I said, there's not a drop of self-absorbed blood in his body. And yet, like, I think for all of us, it's just such an awesome way to remind all of us what his energy was and what it meant to not just this group, but like what's cool for me, I've known Jeff since 1997 at University of Illinois. So I know a whole different pocket of his crew from University of Illinois. He's obviously got his radio family. He's got the Bears Beat family. He's got his ESPN Nation. And like one of the things I was thinking this morning was how many different, if you took JD's phone right now and went through it, how many different threads is he in, right? Like it's got to be like 1,000 with the number of people that are in different threads with them. And it's just mind blowing. I think the GoFundMe, the last time I checked, was that like, it was knocking on the door of $700,000,
yes.
Right? Like on barely a day old. And then you see, like Jim Irsay contributing 25 grand out of great generosity.
Dan Snyder
head would have spun spun off his neck if we told him last week that Dan Snyder and Jim Irsay had just given his family $25,000 a piece.
I thought about that. What? I thought about that today. I saw that, Jim Irsay donated that. And now as like somebody who works for the Colts, my first instinct was to text JD and be like, can you believe this generosity? And I was like, I can't do that. And that was like one of those like little moments of like, I want to text JD this. Like, I mean,
he would be like, JJ, he would totally be like, look at all these owners of teams trying to be the biggest swinging dick in the room. I mean, let's be honest. That JD would just be like, really? This is what they're now. But you know what? In the end, it's all for a good thing. So that's
yes.
So that's okay.
Peggy, I texted somebody an emoji of a ruler earlier because I thought that's what the owners were trying to do. So God bless you for saying it out loud. No, and it was, would he like? He'd hate all of this. Like,
every bit of it.
I mean, when we would ask him how he was, he would give us an overtly positive answer and then ask about our kids playing t-ball or how our wives were. Or he was far more interested in that than he wanted us to be in him. And the fact that people have never met him, have made grand statements about their families about him, I think would make him, I think it'd drive him crazy. And I, like you said, the outcome's great, but it'd be very awkward.
Guys, I hadn't really looked at this until now, the GoFundMe thing. JJ, I don't know if you've been there long enough. I know Jim a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's genuine with him.
Oh, it is.
With Irsay, it is. Snyder's a total dick, and he's the opposite. The guy that. But what really just struck me, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7th biggest donations here just happened in the last hour. $5,000 from Andy Dalton and $5,000 from Anthony Rizzo, and I suspect JD would feel good about that.
Yeah,
because I think especially Dalton. I don't pretend to know the guy well, but that's making an impact on somebody. And I think it's the story that's making an impact on him because how well could Andy know? JD, because we don't know anybody in these last 2 years.
Did you guys see the story spread to like people.com? There's a story on people.com, like they wrote about it. I have to imagine one of the morning shows like Today Show or Good Morning America is gonna have something on it. To be honest, I mean, it's that the story, like Hub said, is huge.
Can you imagine JD flipping on GMA from upstairs and going, Jeff Dickerson has gone viral, and him being like, what's going on here?
Good Morning America.
Good morning.
I think one of the things.
Can you, Adam Hoge, can you tell your Andy Dalton story from Dick's Sporting Goods?
Sure, I can, but I know Hub just wanted to say something there. So Hub, go ahead.
Well, no, I think one of the things that might make JD feel the best about all this is I keep looking at this GoFundMe thing, and I'm thinking about Parker and the opportunity of who Parker is going to have to be and the lessons that he's going to take from this and what he's able to make of it and what he does make of it. I mean, there's nothing good or exciting about this, but that's a terrible word, but I'm just really excited right now thinking about who Parker might be and anxious to see who he is, and I suspect it's going to be great because you look at his role models, and I can't imagine how tough this is for him and what he's going through right now. But this GoFundMe thing sets up the opportunity for the beginning of an incredible story because he's going to have the chance to be, whoever he chooses to be, and knowing how he was brought up and who his parents were. That's something to look forward to, I think. Something I'm anxious to see.
I don't know if you've brought this up, Hub, but obviously you're behind the efforts to rename the Good Guy Award after Jeff, which could not be a more appropriate thing in the world. And the fact that it's coming at this time of the year where we're about to give that award out, maybe you can speak to that for a second, because I just think that's, I mean, can you guys think of a more worthy person to be attached to that award?
It just, Adam.
What a great idea.
Well, Adam and I exchanged a couple emails a couple of weeks ago, and when this all hit yesterday, I'm sitting here last night and thinking, well, I didn't know anything about the financial side of it. I remember, hearing Jeff saying, "Oh, there's life insurance. Don't worry about it." I got the sense that money was never really a concern of his. But it just kind of, I was sitting here thinking about him last night. It came to me, this is a no-brainer. I mean, is there a more obvious opportunity for us of something to do here? And I will tell you, I have not heard back from anybody, but I've heard back from most of the group, and one after another, absolutely great idea. I mean, there's enough of a consensus. And I already know the Bears are, fully supportive of it. And so I just, you never know what the appropriate timing with all of this is. And we're going to present the award next week. I was going to let you guys know probably on Friday. But yeah, it's going to happen. I mean, everybody's 100% supportive of it. And that will, I think I said something in the email, that will live in that room, for as long as that room is there. And it's a small thing, but it's a real thing. And so, hopefully it's something that every one of you, we should all feel good about.
I just
that's so long as we, as either you or I go to the trophy shop and actually get it updated.
Oh, that was a given. Yeah. You notice I did put in the email, I'm covering the cost. I didn't expect the Bears to do anything about it. I'm probably gonna have to get my hammer and screwdriver and go in there and do it, but that's fine. Actually, guys, no, I don't know. I don't think this is it's off the record for us on this group. And if it becomes a podcast, screw it. So what? But I was live on the radio within 15 minutes of the announcement when I heard from Bears PR. And they wanted to, get a couple things straight and make sure they did the right thing. And so I already took my cheap shot at the family and their alleged frugalness. So I don't want to have fun at their expense with this. Everything I've seen, they reached out to a couple times. They really do want to do the right thing here, and they are to be respected and complimented.
Well, and I just want to say something on that real quick too, because I understand that there was some stuff going on social media today with, these guys are donating this. Where are the Bears? Where are the Bears? Like, I have been in contact with the Bears a lot over the last couple of weeks, including today multiple times. Okay. Their concern was that they didn't just want to throw a bunch of money in a pot. They wanted to do something that had an impact that is really, really meaningful for Parker specifically. And that extends to individual people in the organization. Like, I know everyone heard what Matt Nagy had to say today in his press conference, but, I was talking to Ryan Pace in Seattle on Sunday, and it's like, what can we do specifically? Not just throw money at a thing. So I can just assure you the Chicago Bears heart on this one is genuine. And this is not going to be something where JD's just not in the media room next year and Parker's forgotten. Like, it's just not going to happen. And just
Adam, I don't mean to interrupt, but I just forget football. Yeah. The McCaskey family, what we know of Matt, what we know of Ryan, these people get family. Okay. And that, to them, everything I've heard from them, that's what this is. This is about family. This isn't about anything between any of us. There's no, we're not on opposite sides of this, I guess is the only way to say it. I'm sorry.
Wait, Adam, can I say one thing real quick?
Sure, go.
And I agree with you. And, my wife was like, why haven't the Bears donated yet? She was kind of tracking. And I'm like, don't worry about the Bears. This is not, that's one thing you can count on. They're good people there. They might not run a great football team, but they do run they do care about people. But I was talking, I was over at his house 2 Sundays ago, and then I went out of town, and that's when he went to hospice. And I was talking to Parker, and Parker, this is just a funny story. The Bears had reached out when Caitlin died, right? And Parker, I know, was at training camp, and he met everyone. And Parker told me, he's like, yeah, I was talking to Ryan Pace, and I asked him, why did you draft Mitch Trubisky over Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson? He's like, he didn't, and in his little voice, he goes, he didn't have a good answer. I was awesome. Like, oh man.
I remember looking at JD's face after that too. I was like, oh shit.
That's awesome. And to that, on Parker, I just want to share a quick story that, Sandy Dickerson, JD's mom, told me the other day when I was over there. So this was this was the morning he was going to hospice, and Parker was still at school that day. And because I asked, where's Parker? Because I thought everybody was on winter break. My kids were already on winter break. And it's like, oh, he's still at school. And she says, what's amazing is he went out yesterday and he bought a bunch of Christmas presents for his friends. And he just couldn't wait to get there today and give his friends the presents. And he even like went to the Nike store and like bought these Nikes for like two of his buddies. And like they even called the school to be like, hey, is this okay? Like he's going to bring some Nikes, and like they don't want to like cause a problem at school. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, this is just unbelievable to me. Like this is happening in his life right now. And he's thinking about it like that. It just told me like Parker's going to be okay because he is JD and Caitlin's son.
But part of that, Hoge, is, I mean, do you remember taking the ferry from San Francisco to what's it called? What's the little town outside? We remember we had to sprint to the boat.
Yeah,
no,
it was you and me. Yeah.
Yeah, and we had to sprint to the boat. It was what's the town on the outskirts of the
Oakland.
No, the nice. No, it's super nice. Anyway, so we're on a ferry. We sprint to a ferry and we're on the ferry. And JD is telling us about how in his one day in San Francisco, he spent the whole morning looking for a Steph Curry jersey for his kid, and about how he finally found one online, and it was going to be there by Christmas, and because Parker deserved it. And I don't know.
I asked Parker, I know Parker loves jerseys, and we know I've been around all those times when JD's buying them. And when I was over, I asked him, what jerseys he wants and stuff. And because he always wanted some new ones. And he goes, I didn't ask for any this year.
No.
And it just like, that really hit me, No.
I remember in Minnesota, that was the New Year's. Emma does not remember that New Year's.
That New Year's.
But he had a Timberwolves jersey. There must have been one in San Diego. I know most of the guys here were on the San Diego trip. He brought Caitlin and Parker on that trip.
Is that where Parker taunted Kevin with his shirt off?
Like that he had more muscles than Kevin?
What's the swimming pool story?
Which is probably like 5 at that point.
I don't remember the taunting, but Dan can speak to. I'm not sure if it's kosher, but there was a hot tub involving, and Parker was there, and a lot of young people, and Rich and Dan.
I could probably fill in some gaps of that story.
Please do.
No, it's actually one of my favorite days because if you guys remember that it was a Monday night game, and I know I got there on Saturday for a Monday night game. Rich got there on Saturday. I think JD did too. And we spent all of Sunday. I mean, you've got a lot of time to kill in San Diego, great place to kill time. Right. And so we went to the pool at the Grand Hyatt, and Parker was bouncing all over the pool that day. It's probably the longest I ever spent with Caitlin, and had an opportunity to just kind of like really speak to her. And you see like instantly, okay, this makes sense. JD and Caitlin make a ton of sense. And, it started getting from mid-afternoon to late afternoon to early evening. And Parker was having just such a great time out there by the pool, hanging out with all of us. And Caitlin's like, well, Jeff, you think we should maybe start to go up and get ready? And he's like, I don't know, Parker's having a great time down here. Like, let's just go with the flow here. And he's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go get a 12 or a Corona. We're going to go up to the hot tub over there, and we're just going to sit up there for a little while until we get hungry. And so out comes the 12 or a Corona. Maybe it was 2 buckets. I think it was like 2 silver buckets of Corona. Kev goes up there, we're up there, and Parker's just sitting on the edge of the hot tub with the Pacific Ocean in the back. Everyone in the hot tub's drinking beer except Parker. And as Kev mentioned, there was like 20 strangers, and Parker was just doing a comedy hour up there and telling stories. And Jeff was just like, we're not gonna end this until Parker is no longer having fun up here. And like Rich and I are like, well, we're never gonna stop having fun up here. So like Parker's staying up here until it's 10 o'clock and they kick us out of here because we're being too loud.
I think Parker is a really special kid that was born into something he's meant to do, something different that is going to, I think JD and Caitlin were kind of launchers for him. And you think about his entire life, the way JD would talk about him, and I think Parker's on his own path. And I think Parker's going to be fun. I think about him at Caitlin's services all the time.
Yeah.
And this kid, he's going to be okay. Adam, JD was telling us last Wednesday when I said, how is Parker? He's like, Parker's fine. Parker's going to be just fine. He's going to be fine. And you think, oh man, this is so sad, but there is something else going on here. There's another force at bay that Parker is going to be fine. Parker's meant for other things to happen in his life. And I think Parker, this is the beginning.
Parker is meant for the world's greatest Tom Rinaldi interview when he's a first-round draft pick in Major League
Baseball. To that point, Peggy, I'm very fortunate to have just a mutual friend from living in Vernon Hills who I've coached with that was with Parker today, actually, and he told me a similar thing, and just that. And he said this, which is, I think, important too over the next week, especially. We're all worried about Parker, and we're always going to be worried about Parker, and we're all going to be there for Parker. Parker's still here, and he just said Parker's going to be fine. I was with him today. He wanted to go to Dave and Buster's. He wanted to, he wanted to play Fortnite, and he's still a kid, and there's going to be plenty of time to be there for Parker. It's okay to mourn JD too right now. And, I think they go hand in hand and it's kind of all together, but just kind of that hit me today as something to keep in mind. And part of the reason why I wanted to do this, and I'm glad we're all here, because this is just doing this right now and being on the Zoom call together. I mean, this is JD. Like, he brought us all together. He just did. It's kind of what we started with this whole thing with. And I think I was texting with Dan earlier about this. It's just, I thought I was ready for this. I thought I was prepared. But once that void became official, like it was really there, then it's just like staring at the Grand Canyon, like fuck, it's real. And I don't even know how I'm going to go to the press box this weekend. I have no idea. Sorry not to bring you guys down. It just hurts to not have them there. I'm kind of glad we're on Zoom right now for the rest of the season for the Bears, because I don't want to go in that media room. Like on Zoom, you can't even tell who's there and who's not. In the media room, you're going to notice forever that JD's not there. And
yeah, I went to practice today, and it was me and one other guy, and I was ready to sob, and because there was just one other person, it was okay. And yeah, I don't know, pulling into that dumb parking lot made me sad. And the next time all of you guys do it, I think it's going to be sad too.
I can speak from someone who's removed from it, but I've been looking forward to the combine next year for months, because I wanted another JD dinner. We didn't get that last year, and I didn't get that the year before that because my kids were just born and they were, a month old. And to not be able to get that, to not be able to sit at a table with JD and, do all the things that we've been talking about with him getting the wine, and I got the wine, and, go to St. Elmo's or Harry and Izzy's if we can't get into St. Elmo's, and to not have that, I mean, that's going to be a void that will never be filled.
Gonna miss. I already have missed because he hasn't been there for a little bit. Adam and Kevin, you could talk about this. The reactions that JD would have watching Parker over his phone or iPad, like the football games, and you could always tell if it was going bad or going well because, forget the why we were all there at Soldier Field, but like he was just trying to be a dad when he couldn't be there. And, with technology now, with Zoom and all this, he's watching his son play baseball. He's tracking his son's hitting. He would always like last year I sat next to him and like he would always show me like, he's up to bat right now, and forget what was happening on the field, but he was locked into his phone on Game Changers, like while watching his son at bat, or there'd be cheering in the press box. It was allowed if JD was cheering on Parker because it happened.
Wasn't all cheering.
No, what's not?
Wasn't all. Do you guys remember do you guys remember when Parker played in New Lenox when we were in Bourbonnais? So this would have been 2019, our last trip down there, and Parker happened to be playing a tournament in New Lenox, which is like from Bourbonnais, that's like 35 minutes. And we're like, well, we gotta go. I mean, and I'll never forget because I don't know at that point. I know I had been to a couple of Parker's games, but I don't know if it was something about that tournament because I feel like there was a lot at stake. Wasn't it like a trip to like Florida at stake?
Yeah, it was like an all-star tournament, and the top like 2 kids from each all-star team go to like the next all-star game.
Yeah, it was like there was a lot at stake here for like almost to the point where I'm like, it feels like a lot of pressure right now. Like what's going on? And JD's just like pacing, like
Oh, Hoge, we didn't talk to JD like the whole time.
No, we didn't. And like a little brother of one of Parker's friends who plays on the team is there, and I happen to be his coach in Vernon Hills. So he's there, and he just wants to play catch with me. So I'm just playing catch with one of the kids, and there's like this anxiety kind of looming over the whole thing too at the same time. And it was just kind of an eye opener of just how much he cared about those games. And I'll share this one too, because this was in May of this year. They're playing nearby in Lincolnshire. And, God bless JD. He comes out to my son's first game of the season. Just him and Parker show up just, because something, and he's got like Parker doesn't have 7 games a day as it is. He comes to James's game, his little T-ball game. So we go out to Parker's game, and they're playing in Lincolnshire. And, I hate to say it, like Parker came in to pitch, and I don't remember what the exact score was. It was like 7-0 or something. But all of a sudden it was 8-7. And Parker gets taken out of the game, and he goes in the dugout, and he just chucks his mitt. I mean, like just chucks it in the dugout. And by the way, JD, this was a week where he was having chemo. Like he was hooked up to his chemo, and I could just tell from being around him, like he wasn't feeling that great. And so Parker has his little fit in the dugout, and JD starts walking that way. Like, doesn't even look at us, nothing, just beeline. He's walking towards the dugout, and I go, oh no. And he gets to the dugout, and he keeps walking. It was like a cooler heads prevailed or something. Like, he didn't even acknowledge Parker. He just kept walking, and I have no idea where he went. Maybe he went to the bathroom for 5-10 minutes. I have no idea, but he came back, and he had cooled off, and it was all good. It just like stuck with me. It was like, oh no, what's about to happen? What's going to happen? And it was like, okay, everything's fine. Everyone's fine. That's just how much those games mattered to him. And, but not like in a negative way, because I can just tell you from being around it, there's a lot of problems right now in youth sports. And I don't bring that up to like highlight any of the problems. JD was so supportive, everything around there. It's all genuine. It's all good, but there's still like the amount he cared was unbelievable to me.
God, Adam, I really wish you had told us that he like went off and cracked Parker, and it was like a scene, and everyone had to pull him off of him.
I was worried for a second.
None of us can live up to JD right now. None of us. I mean, here's the reality. If any of us were gone tomorrow, we ain't getting the shit that JD's getting. So like, there is no way anyone is saying all this great stuff and is going to raise $750,000. And for that, I would walk up to JD and be like, you shit. I hate you for that, because right now, you didn't get to grow old and be a crusty old man. You like, this is good. And that's where I'm going to before I sign off, I just want you guys to know, I'm joking, of course, but that's what I'm going to remember is that we don't know when our time is up, and to have someone like Jay, who was such a positive, is really blessing for all of us. And it's a blessing for me. I'm happy. I'm pissed at him though, because he's making all of us look really shitty. But because there ain't no way anyone's going to say this good stuff about me. So
Peggy, I've heard there's people at NBC5 that said they'll give you like a 45-second package when you so you're set.
That's pretty much true. That might be about as close as we get. I am joking. I love this man so much because that he brought us all together. And, he showed us that you can really be a good person.
Guys,
Peggy,
Adam brought that up. I've been pretty much one of the first ones in the press box this year for whatever reasons. I'm old and difficult and don't want to deal with traffic. And Jeff would usually be one of the first ones to come in after me. And it would be to set up his phone and to get ready because one of Parker's games was being streamed. And, we'd exchange pleasantries and all the good stuff and whatever. And I would be trying to get some work done. But I would be out of this corner of my eye. It was like 2 seats over watching Jeff glued to this game. And I got to tell you, because he would cheer and he'd do a little play-by-play, and Parker just and with anybody else, honestly, it probably would have been a little annoying. But and I was one late to the party. I did not realize until somewhat recently how bad things were, and without knowing that, because it was Jeff. There was something that was so joyous and pure about it, and I couldn't be upset or bothered by it. I couldn't be mad, and now knowing what was going on, it was just stunning to me. Peg, he is what we wish we were. It's not just that is who he was, and so. Yes. Guys, I'm going to apologize. I'm going to have to, we got all the grandkids here. I've got 5 of them between 8 and 3, and I got them all down just before we came on, and they're all going to be jumping on my head at 6 a.m. So I just, Adam, thank you so much for doing this. And, I think the one thought that I just kind of want to leave tonight with is that if there is one thing that I think might upset JD right now, people ask me all the time, why are you still doing this? What do you need this shit for? Especially this season, the truth is I'm probably at the point the last couple of years where I could live without, some of the football and some of the Bears, but I just would miss being part of this group, really. And what everybody brings to it, what you all bring to it, I'm sorry. And what Jeff brought to it. So, I think that's probably the one thing that he's missing a little bit now too. And he's there taking care of all of us and making sure that we're going to be okay and he's going to be okay. And I didn't want to leave like this, but thank you, Adam. I'm going to see you guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, Al.
Peggy, the last time I think we all had a glass of wine with you was when I think we went to lunch before, in the middle of JD's wife's funeral.
We went to Wildfire.
We went to Wildfire. You're right, and I hate to think that the next time we see you will be under a similar circumstance, but I do think that JD would. If anything would embody what JD embodied around us, it would be bringing us all together in the name of him and in the name of telling fun stories and trying to make sense of all this.
Pat, when you mentioned the parking lot, it made me think of a very quick, funny JD story. We all know he drove that Escalade, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And JD loved nice things. And he wanted everybody else to be able to have nice things. Mm-hmm. And I remember getting to the parking lot, like my first year on the beat, around the same time as JD. I'm 25, single, living in Lakeview in a tiny apartment. And I get out of the car and I see JD gets on this Escalade. He's like, "Hey, Kev." And I was like, I kind of noticed his car and he goes, "You got to get yourself one of these, man." He's like, he's like breaking down his Escalade to me and telling me all the things about how I need to go get this Escalade. He did. I don't know who it was that said, I think Rich said it on the radio today, but how many people here have heard JD talk about Aruba? And you have to go to Aruba. Like,
yes.
Carmen DeFalco was talking today about it too. Like he wanted people to go on vacation. Like he was if you said, "Hey, I'm going to be so-and-so here for a week," he would always say, "Good, great, good for you. Where are you going? What are the places you're going to be at? Tell me everything about it. Next trip, go to Aruba."
Yep.
So I have to chime in on this because, Kev, I think you might have actually been there in the press box. So Krista and I are going to Aruba in February. And I don't know, maybe subconsciously it was because of him. I'm not really sure. It was just where we decided to go, but I could not wait to get to the press box the next day after we had booked the trip, because this was just a couple months ago. And I could not wait to get there and say, "Hey, we're going to Aruba." And with not kidding, within 30 seconds, I had an email in my inbox of JD's like travel guide of Aruba that he sends to everybody who goes to Aruba. He had it ready. He's like, "Oh my God." He's sitting there in the press. "Oh my God, I got to send you this email." And he's like, type. Bam, it's in my inbox. And it's just like this long list of things to do in Aruba. And I mean, look, now I'm really glad we're going there, and it's going to be hard too, but like I am going to Aruba in February with my wife without the kids, which he would also say, "No kids, no, you got to go."
No kids,
yeah.
Absolutely not.
And what he would also say to me, and it's going to be really hard on the bank account, because he would always say, "Spend your money on experiences and eat well, dine well." So I can't wait to go, and I'm going to follow that email to a T, because that's where he loved to go with Caitlin. And anyway, this is I just can't believe you had that ready to go. Bam, I'm going to Aruba. Here it is.
I'm gonna sign off, and before I do, I said this on the radio. This is gonna get me emotional, but sorry, guys. When I had decided to retire early, JD was the only reporter who said to me, "Do it. Do it." He's like, "Go live your life." He's like, "You got kids, you got money." He's like, "Go drink good wine, go travel." He's like, "I would do it now if I could." And you know why I didn't want to? Because of this. Because of the camaraderie. It wasn't the deadlines. It wasn't the players. It wasn't the teams. I loved being in the media room. I loved the camaraderie. And JD knew that. And he said, "Go live your life." He's like, "I would have done it in a second." He goes, "I would do it tomorrow if I could." I have never forgotten that, because when I decided to do it, and I really I didn't have to, he was right. He was right, you guys. And I just for everyone here, we have great moments together. We have great times together, and we all have these memories in the back of our head that remind us of something. And, JD always told me that. And, sometimes I'm like, God, was that the right thing? Should I still do it? Why the fuck am I doing a shitty podcast? I'm like, but yeah, go live your life, you guys. Seriously. Go live your life.
But why am I doing a shitty podcast is the refrain of every sports writer in the world. Just so you know.
Except the Hoge Jahns podcast.
And that's why you're on here right now.
That's the good one.
I mean, seriously, sorry, I didn't mean to bring everyone down, but I do just want you to, like, it was so prophetic that he said that. And yeah, you know what, guys, like when you're in the throngs of the shit of the job, like, just remember, it's just a job. It's just a job. There's a life out there. Go enjoy. Adam, go spend more money than you should on that vacation. Honestly, that's what life is about. Because when you come back, you laugh about that. And then you just have to work extra hours, like whatever, pay it off. But I miss you guys terribly. I am forever grateful to Kevin and Adam. I've told you guys this. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. We love you. It's been awesome having you on here. Thank you so much.
Peg. I got to jump off too, guys.
All right, guys.
I got to do some. Thank
See
you.
ya.
There's just a couple things, and I want to make sure. Thanks, John. I want to make sure everyone has their chance to say anything else if they want to. But just coming off Peggy's story, I had a similar thing because summer I was really struggling between. I started coaching at Carmel in the spring, and it was really intended to just be like kind of a spring thing. And I just loved it so much. I wanted to keep doing it. And I knew I couldn't with my family unless I gave up Northwestern. And every single person I talked to, including Jason McKee, our head coach at Carmel, was like, oh, you got to do Northwestern. I mean, you got to keep doing that. And JD was the one person. Do Carmel. He's like, you could have 1 million media jobs. What does that do? Do something different. Have an impact on kids and their lives and see a different side of football. We were out on his patio, which is a whole different story of that damn patio that he's been texting us all photos of all year. Which, in just a cruel twist of shittiness, didn't get finished until November when he finally got the outdoor kitchen done, and it's 30 degrees out or whatever. And we were just hanging out there with James and Parker, and that was it. I mean, that was, to me, we all know the credibility he had as a reporter, but the credibility he had as a friend trumped that. It was, like, you believed him. If he's telling you to do that, I'm like, okay. I mean, and there's more that went into it, obviously talking to my wife and stuff like that, but it just really stuck with me. And I'm glad Peggy told that story too. I mean, retirement's a whole different deal, much bigger deal, but it just impacts like that I'll let it kind of like creates these little roads within your life, right? And that's kind of, I think, why we all feel this void right now.
I mean, before I sign off, JD is one of the biggest reasons why I am still in the business, in a sense. I mean, I got laid off by NBC in January. After I, tweeted it, one of the first people to call me was JD. And, it was, how you doing? I can't believe they did this. How you doing? How's Betsy doing? And then it was, all right, here's who you got to talk to. And JD maybe had known for 3 minutes. And he was like, here's Jim Phillips' number, call him. And I mean, Jim Phillips, he's in his last week as Northwestern's AD. I'm like, there's no way he's taking my call. I, shoot him a text immediately. 5 minutes later. Oh yeah. Any friend of JD is a friend of mine. Let's find a time. And, at this point, the opportunity with the Colts had started to present itself. And I talked with Jim, and Jim encouraged me to think about working for a team and working for a university. You got kids, having them grow up around that, has really been special to me, a lot of that stuff. So I took the job, and one of the first people I texted was JD. And two things JD sent me after that. I still have these text messages. The first one was, you can stay in Chicago, right? Me, no. JD, all right, so you're going to live by Rich, right? Well, Rich and I now live like 9 minutes away from each other down the road. We went to go watch the Bears Steelers game at a bar over here in my neighborhood. And I think I sent it to, you and Adam and Kevin and Pat and Emma, a photo of us cheersing at the end of that game when Cassius March got kicked out. And like, well, we don't have to write about this. But the second thing that JD did was he's like, here's Mike Wells' number. Go text him. If you ever need anything, Wells is the best. Like, JD had already helped me. He guided me to this spot. And then he was like on top of that, I don't know if I had that phone call with Jim Phillips, if I would have been like, all in on taking a job with the team, but I am, and I love this job. And I wish I could tell JD how much I love it right now, because he played a big part in this. And I miss everyone in Chicago. Doing this Zoom, seeing all your guys' faces is really comforting, but I just wish JD was on this call.
Me too.
I remember checking in a month or so ago and doing the, how you doing, how you holding up, and he can't remember the exact wording, but he put a positive spin on it, and then he made some comment about Ryan Nall, because that's what you'd expect of JD. And for me, the memories go back to my first year on the beat in 2015, where I grew up around here and I followed the Bears, and I knew everybody, all of you guys who have been, I think every one of you, maybe with the exception of Berman, I think was here prior to me arriving on the beat. And I was intimidated because I was, Kevin said he was 25. I think I was 25 as well when I first started. And I sat down next to JD in that cubicle for 7 years, and other people were a little bit more careful, trying to get to know me, and a little slow. And JD from day one was just a friend. It just blew me away. It made it so easy. Any kind of hesitation or anxiety I might have had going into this job was just gone because of him and his presence. And he was the same person every day. Every freaking day is the same person, no matter how challenging life got for him, how many things he had to deal with, from Caitlin's battles for 7 years, and then becoming a single father, and then this past year dealing with it himself. And the same upbeat person, constantly telling you everything was going to be all right, and then asking about you, caring about you, and caring about others. And he just made everybody around him better. And I keep thinking about it today. And I was up in Wisconsin this morning, and I did the drive back, and I was listening to just colleagues paying tribute, and just I couldn't hold it in. It was a 4-hour car ride that I couldn't do it. It was so tough, just because the stories, it captured the person that everybody knows and loves. And I keep coming back. I was texting with Berman about this earlier. I think Parker is going to be okay. And it's what we were talking about earlier. I know we all have that in mind, but selfishly, for every one of us, the presence and the love that we had from JD, I can't imagine just moving forward without that on this job. I'm going to be a mess on Sunday. I'm sure others will as well. And whoever said it, the first time we walked back in that House media room, oh shit, I can't imagine it.
To be fair, Emma, you're going to be a mess because you have to watch Nick Foles play Mike Glennon.
Mike Glennon. It's
Mike Berman from NBC5 is here too. And I just want to make sure he has a chance to say something. I know you've been sitting here listening for a while, Mike.
Hey, he's got such a good voice. It'd be a shame if he didn't.
Right?
I have to be quiet because my 4-month-old is upstairs and my 3-year-old's just off over here. But I'm honored to have been invited. Thanks, Hoge, for forwarding me the email. And was just happy to listen because, you guys have amazing stories on the road with JD, and it makes me so jealous that, I don't get that opportunity to be there for multiple nights and hanging out like that. That camaraderie it's something I remember from my time working in Austin, and we'd go for the Longhorns games, and, we'd go out in the college towns and go have nice dinner and, have way too many drinks the night before a game and stuff like that. Anyways, just like stuff that the way we travel now doesn't allow me to do. Anyways, I'm just honored that I had an opportunity to know Jeff, and he was welcoming to me. 2016 was my first season. He was so welcoming to me. His really good friend Mike is married to a girl that I was friends with growing up, Casey. So like we had that connection, and but it's like you don't need to have a connection with him. He's going to bring you in and wrap you in his arms and make you feel like part of the crew no matter what. So it's just an unthinkably unfair hand that Parker's been dealt, and it's hard to see a peer, someone your age get sick like this and pass away, and someone who was so full of life and had so much more coming down the road. It makes you want to do all you can to honor them, by living life to the fullest and loving, unconditionally and stuff like that. So I think that's what I'll take from JD is the endless positivity, the desire to have fun, to treat people right, stuff like that. So, I'll confide in you guys and say in Tampa earlier this year, I think it was a 320 kick. So, and I always have like 3 stories I have to knock out. And JD was like, "Where are you staying?" And I told him, he's like, "I'm staying there too. Like, let's get together after the game." And I'm like, I'll try, but I know I always have so much shit I have to do. And it just didn't materialize. And that's hard, because that would have been an opportunity to hang with him. I really enjoyed Hoge. I remember you being there at the hotel in London in 2019, just having some wine with JD, and, my wife was there, and, we talked about Caitlin passing, and just, I remember my wife commenting as we walked back up to the room, just like how incredible his strength was, the way he was bouncing back and having fun, and, just talking about it and saying, it's okay, I'll be okay. Anyway, sorry for rambling.
No, I remember that too, Mike. I mean, and your wife being there, that was one of the things he did. I mean, if any of us had family members with us anywhere, it was, I still have not gotten the courage to talk to James about this. Because I just, he's at the age where he understands, and Parker's daddy not being there, that's just, because that's what he called him. And but just thinking about London and thinking about you being there and thinking about your wife being there, and just how much that trip, we kind of started this tonight talking about London, and how much that trip meant to him, because what a shitty year. But to get away, right, for 4 or 5 days, or even less, however we were there, the Bears were there for like 12 hours. That was a good strategy. You just could tell while we were there with him how much it meant to him. And I'll just always remember that.
Hoge, I brought my 4-year-old came with us. And first of all, my 4-year-old refers to you as James's daddy. But but the fact that, I mean, I remember JD in the hotel lobby, squatting down and talking to him for 10 minutes. And I think all of us on that trip I think we all missed our families. And I think that what was great about JD was that JD went and grabbed the little boy from my family and was so gracious to him. And I hate to say it, it might be the last time that my kid saw Jeff. And and he was still, the other day you said you haven't told James about it. I told Boone last night. It was just answering he asked why his parents were crying, and that was the only thing we could think to tell him.
I could say probably 150 things. I'll try to narrow it down to 2.5 on the close. But somebody said earlier, it was either Hoge or Fishbane, that JD liked nice things, right? And I just wanted to make a distinction that he didn't make sure it was only nice things, because as you guys all know, we had no qualms going over to the Mall Hibachi in Bourbonnais for dinner. It didn't require, and the pictures I tweeted out this morning where I said, JD,
that's a nice thing, by the way. How dare you? That's a nice thing. How dare you?
to have had a dinner with Jeff at the Versace mansion, right, and have enjoyed the wine on him, which cost way too much, and then to contrast that with these moments that we had at the Mall Hibachi in Bourbonnais, and realize you could have the same amount of fun and enjoyment with a guy spraying the sake out of the squeezed ketchup bottles into your mouth, said a lot about who JD was. And he brought that group together. I always got a kick out of how the next day he would be sort of power ranking the hibachi chef that we had, right? And I was like, oh, that guy last night, that guy was great. That, he didn't just do the standard, what is this, a volcano? No, it's an onion joke. He told it, and he'd be power ranking the different hibachi chefs. And you were always rooting for a great hibachi chef at Mall Hibachi. The positivity that everyone mentions about JD, it was ever present in every facet of his life. He was positive toward his job. He was positive as a husband. He was positive as a father. He was positive as a friend. The positivity that he carried through these last 11 months, fighting a battle that none of us could even fathom to imagine, and not ever show any signs of weakness. It gets me hard, because Mike, you said it's hard for someone to watch someone of our age kind of pass away, but Jeff didn't deteriorate despite this battle with cancer. It was like the fullness of his life was present in every one of these months down the stretch. To those of us that visited him in his house, to those who went to hospice to see him, he was still the same Jeff to the very end. And I take great, I don't know what the word is, but fulfillment in the fact that he didn't let this thing take him away, right? He just lived himself to the very end. And the presence he had to do that, the presence of mind he had to attack this with that strength, is something that I hope we all can apply to life going forward. I guess I'll close with this, because as many of you know, I lost my dad to cancer in September, and it was the Friday before he passed away, and I was sitting with him in his hospital room at Glumberg Hospital. And my dad, like Jeff, was a presence. He was tough, and he wouldn't feel sorry for himself or cry through any part of his very, very short battle with cancer. And there was one point he was sitting in the recliner in the corner of the room, and he had a tear in his eye. I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "I just keep thinking about Jeff." And he didn't know Jeff, and they basically only communicated via Twitter, but he was so sad for what Jeff had gone through with Caitlin. And he was so sad that he wasn't going to have this ability to see out the duration of Parker, right? And like to live the life of a father, that you should be able to see all these things that your son goes through. And it just, that will always stick with me. And it's just our reminder, I guess, to just not take any of this shit for granted, and to understand that even the most vibrant people in the world don't get a choice sometimes. And no matter how tough they are and how big the fight is within them, that it just comes. And, I love JD. It's been 24 years since I met him. And it's like, as you said earlier, Hoge, it's just shocking to like process the finality that like, we're not going to hear that voice. We're not going to hear the jokes. We're not going to hear the laugh. And I'm thankful for today, because really from sun up until, we're approaching midnight here. People have just spilled it, and we should all be so lucky. As Peggy said, we should all be so lucky.
Yeah, well said, Dan. If anyone else has anything else I want to say.
Yeah, I was thinking about your son Ryan, because when you would send videos of Ryan's baseball, I think the only person more excited was JD. Like, he was so excited. He loved Parker more than anything. And he was so supportive of Parker's baseball that he became everybody's baseball czar, to the point where he was coming to watch me coach. Like, I wasn't coaching my kids. I was just a coach. And for years, he and Caitlin too, they'd come and sit in the bleachers at my team's games. They didn't know any of the kids. They didn't know any of the parents. They just knew me. They'd sit with my dad. And it got to the point where, as years went on, JD would follow my team's games on Game Changer. And he'd text me and he'd say, "What happened in that last inning?" Or great play by, he'd see, the shortstop. And I had this selfishly sad realization last night when I was with my son, that, because I think about, I always, when he was born, JD was so excited, because again, he gets so excited for everybody else's enjoyment. And I was thinking, like, I can't wait to break down travel baseball programs with JD, try to figure out like where my son's going to play. And I know, Dan, you got to enjoy that. Johns, you tweeted about that. And the baseball is such a specific thing, but that was kind of how JD and I really connected. And I would go to Parker's games, and it's one of those things now that I look back at 4th of July weekend, my wife and my son and I, we went to go see Parker play. So that was the last time she got to see JD. It was the only time he got to meet my son. And I felt like such an asshole, because I didn't realize it was the last inning and Parker was up to bat. And I'm thinking there's like the 4th. I had no idea. And Parker ends up getting the last out of the game. And, Parker's very competitive. And sometimes, that's all right. See what he can get another bat. It's the beauty of baseball. JD's just shaking his head. And I know we've talked a lot about the GoFundMe, and I just hope that people that love JD, we're all going to be there for Parker as much as we can, but it's the way that he supported each and every one of us through our interests and the things that were important to us is just something that I will always take with me, as what made him so special, and want to carry that on and want to, do the same thing for other people that he was able to do for all of us. And then just to echo what everyone said, like, we are all so lucky that we get to, like, it's the worst possible thing that we can think of, but we're so lucky that we get to sit here and talk about these great memories we have with such an amazing person. With that, I'm actually going to sign off now. So this was great, guys. Thanks for Hoge. Thanks for organizing.
See you, Kev.
Well, thanks for being here, Kev.
Bye, Kev. Somebody today referred to Jeff as a celebrity. And it was weird, because I never thought of JD as anything other than JD. But to what Kev said, a celebrity is somebody who enjoys his status in life. And I think Jeff was somebody who enjoyed all of our statuses in life. I mean, one of the things I'm really sad about is that Jeff would have been there to tell me what baseball leagues to enroll my son in, and, when I would tell him how good he was in T-ball and, fall ball and stuff like that, he'd say, well, you don't want to go to this league, you want to go to that one. And he would just encourage all of us to do the things that made us happy. And that's not my definition of a celebrity. That's my definition of of a friend. And, I realized that, he's raised $500,000 nationally, and it's fantastic. but I hope that everybody realizes that that those of us who are close to him we can help Parker. We can go do things that money can't do, and I hope that all of us do a good job of doing that.
You remember like the small little conversations sometime, right? You always had them with JD about anything and everything. Like, he used to bust my balls about liking classic rock too much and country. And then like one time on the sideline at training camp, he goes, "You know what? Adam, I was outside having a beer outside." It's like, I can't do the JD impersonation. Like, he's having a beer outside, and
I was having a beer outside, Adam. Yeah,
country music came on, and I liked it.
And I liked it.
And I'm thinking to myself, I Jeff Dickerson, JD, I just won you over a little bit here. I think like little conversations like that. We talk baseball all the time. I'll always remember him encouraging me to encourage my son to play up, challenge himself.
Johnsy, didn't he bring your kids a baseball bat?
Yeah, I got his Parker Dickerson's baseball bats are my son's baseball bats now. I'm gonna think of JD every single time my son's come up to bat. We talked out in the parking lot. We're like, Jeff Dickerson standing outside his, what was he having? Escalade, Kev? I forget. Kevin's gone, but like, he's handing me these bats, and he's like, Adam, he's still got pop in it. He's like swinging in the parking lot, in the media parking lot, swinging these bats. Baseball bats, guys. I don't know if you know this, can get expensive, and he gave them to me, and I'm telling you, they still have pop. Like, he spreads happiness. It's that joy is going to spread to my sons, and there's going to be hits and like runs scored, and their teammates are going to use that bat. Like, so I'll think of that. But he always used to give me a hard time. Like, Pat, you could appreciate this. Like, when like I first started on this beat, I was hungry, I was aggressive. We go to the combine, and like we'd have dinner together with all the beat writers, and I was out. Like, I'm going from spot to spot to spot to spot to spot. Like, we're working it. Remember that, Pat? Like, that was the job, building connections. And he would always bust my chops, JD. He's like, "Oh, you'll be back. We'll see you."
You would, and it'd be 1:30 in the morning, and you would be back.
Yeah, and like, like, stay here. He would always be like, "Stay here with us, have another beer," and like, "Oh no," like, he always understood. But now I understand like his message there. Like, an hour and a half dinner became 3. 2 hours became 4. We had that fantastic dinner on the second floor of John Fox's favorite restaurant in Bryan. Remember that, Pat? Like
the waitress had stories. Yeah.
And like there was no rush. Like, we all made our way, and like I thought about that a lot over the past few days, and I've it's always stuck with me over the years, and just that balance in life. And I think we've hit on that throughout this conversation we're having here. And he was about that, and like, he knew what was important, right? Like, he knew what was important. And
what's hard is that so many of us are in situations with young children, and a lot of us with young boys. Johns, what's the line? Wasn't there like 20 boys at Hallis Hall, like 3 girls or something?
Yeah, men make men was the saying. Like,
no, but we're all there, and it's weird because the intersection of you want to be the best father you can with you want to be the best employee you can, they come at the same time.
Yeah.
And that Jeff always chose father, and would not even entertain the idea of anything else. And the fact that he knew all of our sons by name. If you quizzed him, he would go 15 for 15. And
the only one who could do it too.
Yeah. He was the only one. And he made us want to be better fathers and men.
Better friends.
Not necessarily. He didn't make us be better reporters. He made us be better people. And I don't know anybody who could say that.
You're right. he was a good friend to all of us, and I think if there's anything, it's, I could be a better friend. We could all be better friends. I know myself especially.
Okay. Guys, I know I needed this tonight because I know last night I was sitting by my phone crying, and I could see, JJ like this Instagram and John's like this, or Emma posts this, or Pat posts this. Like, we were all up. We were all doing the same. We were all doing the same thing.
I was betting a Minnesota bowl game and telling you all about it. Yeah.
Pat's telling me about PJ Fleck. I'm like, I did have
I know
the
you
game
don't
on,
like him. I know you don't like him.
Yeah.
I was sitting in bed last night until I didn't fall asleep until 2:30 because I was listening to the Waddle and Sylvie podcast talking about JD. I mean, I just like couldn't fall asleep because every time I closed my eyes, it was just like I couldn't stop thinking about it. And yeah, like that was the thing, Hoge. I like reposted your Instagram, and then I posted something on mine, and I saw that you liked it. You laughed at the tweet that JD was chiding me about tweeting about Clifton Duck too much.
Yeah. He said you tweeted something about Clifton Duck, and his response was something like, "I thought we talked about this."
It was a good pun. It was about Clifton Duck. He was Peking Duck, and JD was like, I thought we had a conversation about this.
I loved his jokes about like the 53rd man on the roster.
Oh, I mean, he gave me so much about Alex Bars. I mean, that's where that one started. But I remember last year,
Ryan Alcris.
I let a press conference off asking about Darnell Mooney, and JD's like, "What are you doing? Why are we asking about Darnell Mooney?" And then a couple of weeks later, Mooney has a couple of good games. He's like, "I guess I was wrong."
Somebody made the point that JD would have rolled his eyes about not naming names, but somebody asked about Tease Tabor in the press conference today. Like, JD would have been like, "Come on!" And also, I keep coming back to that. That night we were in Bourbonnais, sitting around the indoor pool at whatever Marriott hotel we were at, and JD wanted to keep the party going. We were out of wine. He gave me $40, sent me to Tucci's, the Italian restaurant next to the hotel, and said, "See if they'll sell you wine." I was like, "You want me to just like go up there? Like, I think they're closed, but like, so yeah, just knock at the back door, give him $40, see what kind of wine they'll give us." And he wanted to keep the party going for another 2 hours. So if JD were here, he'd be Venmo me $40 and saying, "Go find an Italian restaurant somewhere and beg for wine."
Krista brought that up tonight, Emma, because she just happened to be in Bourbonnais that night with James. She was laughing about that one because that was it. Didn't matter to Dan's point earlier about you could be at the nicest restaurant or you could be at a hibachi in Bourbonnais. You could be sitting at the pool at the Fairfield Inn in Bradley, Bourbonnais, and we can make a night out of it because JD was there. Because if he hadn't been there, it wouldn't have been the same. And that's just what I'm struggling with, guys. I mean, one other thing I want to mention because John Moon Mullen was here earlier, and he had a bad connection, so he couldn't really communicate all that well. But he left us a message here as he signed off, and he just wanted to say, loving the stories, making me sorry to have missed the last 2 years. Just thinking about how we remember. For me, it's often snapshots. On his deck behind the house with Peggy and JD in a great wine place in Arizona and DC. That kind of thing. For me, the fun thought here is that all of the snapshots involving JD are in full memory color. That was JD. Color. Just the best. Be well, everyone. We'll be putting out a text shortly about a series of YouTube videos I've done called Attitude Over Cancer. I think JD lived a lot of that. Hope everybody's doing great. Moon. We had a lunch at Portillo's because Moon's been battling cancer himself, and we had a lunch at Portillo's. This was pre-pandemic. I mean, just barely. But
didn't JD have like the biggest pasta dish and a huge salad? I don't know why I remember that. Sorry. I think I sat across from him like, whoa, that is a lot of food.
but we all got together for Moon, and I happened to be at the end of the table, Like JD could have been a doctor on cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the irony of this. Like he was just down there talking to Moon about everything and everything he went through with Caitlin. And are you doing this? Are you talking to the University of Chicago? Have you tried this? Talk to this doctor. I mean, it was endless. I mean, the guy
here, yeah.
The guy essentially had a doctorate in battling cancer before he ever had cancer. And, you know, nobody could been, it's not fair. I keep just going back to that. I know we all do. It's just, there's nothing that's fair about this. And I just wanted to share what Moon said because he was here and couldn't really, and he's still fighting and we love him too. Another thing I want to say is that I wish Zach Zayman was here. Zach had a DePaul game in Indianapolis tonight, was on his way home after the game, and he should be here because Zach was raised with JD on this beat. And I know he's hurting and we love him too. I just kind of have this list I'm going through, guys. One of the things that just still amuses me is, JD was not much of a Captain Morgan drinker. But you guys probably know this, like that's all my wife drinks is Captain Morgan. And so he would literally keep a bottle of Captain at his house just for her. And he texts me, he's like, hey, the Captain's flowing. It's ready. And it was always there. And it'd be wherever Krista had left it off was where it still was. And it was there just for her. I mean, we might keep bottles of liquor in our liquor cabinets for like friends that we might know, but like for one person, but that was him. And I was going through my texts yesterday. My phone goes back pretty much a year. I mentioned this patio earlier. So my texts go back exactly a year. So I'm looking at these texts and I went as far back as I could, and it was December 28th, 2020. So it's exactly a year before he passed. And he said, big news. My neighbor and I are both building small outdoor kitchen for the patios, stainless steel cabinets, concrete countertop, and industrial outdoor beer fridge. How are you feeling? Like that was the next task. Because I had been dealing with COVID and I had been dealing with some fatigue for a while. And it was just, here's my news. How are you feeling? I said, wow, that's awesome. I'm pretty much back to normal. Just need to get back in shape and I need football season to end. And he said, no kidding. Am I the only one who feels exhausted? I think it's the stress of everything I'm dragging. It never complained like that. And it's not even complaining, but like to him, that's complaint. Like to get something from him, like that's him complaining. And I didn't see this till last night because obviously at the time, this was before, everything started to happen. And I wish I had seen this a week ago. Maybe I would have asked him, but I just wonder, was he already feeling things? I'll never know, but it's just kind of hard to see that last night. That's about as much complaining as he did the whole year after he knew what was going on. Just, it's tough. And I'll finish with this too. Because I was telling the story about Vegas and I never really finished it earlier. But so we went out to dinner with Weeds, and then Weeds had an early flight, like a lot of people did. But JD and I had later flights. And I told the story earlier, if you were listening, that he felt bad about the fact he went to bed the night before I got there. Like he really felt bad about that. I'm like, dude, you don't have to feel bad. Like, So I was like, let's go to the bar. Let's, and before we had sat down for dinner, we had sat at the bar because the White Sox were playing the Astros that night in the playoffs. And it was the one good game they had the entire series. And this bartender just happened to be like the nicest guy. And we like kind of bonded with him. And so dinner ends, Weed's going to bed. And he's like, let's go back to the bar. Let's go back to our guy. And we're like walking over there, and that guy sees us. He's like, "Oh yeah, come sit down." And he, we ended up sitting there for like 2 or 3 more hours. Like to the point that I was the one who had to shut it down because I was worried about him, and I was like, I got to get you. He was staying at the Aria where we are. I was like, I got to get you to your room and make sure you make your flight tomorrow. But I didn't want it to end. Like that was the problem. Like I would have sat there all night. And we talked about everything. Those were the moments where we talk about what was going on this year. Talk about Parker. Because it could be hard to get him to talk about that stuff because he didn't want to. I think deep down he did want to, but he didn't want to. He just wanted to show his strength all the time, right? I know I'm rambling here, but I just think about that night and how grateful I am that was able to have him this year. Even as I kind of could realize things were happening. But you never brought it up to him, right? You didn't say that. He was going to beat it. That's all that mattered. He'd let you know. He would let me know at the right times when he wanted to, what he was feeling. You'd ask him how he was doing. And if he changed the subject, that was it, right? You didn't bring it back up. But sometimes he'd tell you. And that was wasn't very often, but sometimes he did. And just hurts, guys. So thank you so much for being here tonight. I just appreciate all of you too. Everybody who's been here at any point tonight, those of you that are still here. I love you guys. I love him so much. And just thank you.
Love you, man. Love and respect all you guys.
Yeah, love you guys. It's been an incredible friendship for 7 years for me. And JD's going to live on with all of us. He's not going to be present in that room, but he's going to be with us. And we're going to feel him for as long as we're covering this team, as long as we keep going.
I think I've said this, I don't know how many times today, just people reaching out here or there. He was the best. Yeah. It's almost like a cliche, right? But he was the best of all of us. He was the absolute best, the fucking best. No one quite like him. He really was the best.
I'll say this. If you want to listen to a Bears Giants breakdown, this is not the podcast this week. You can find a different one. Emma, who you picking on Sunday?
I don't know. Is Glenn still with the Giants? Good God.
What are we talking about? Colts over Raiders?
Cut his ass after that game?
Yeah. JD, please break down a game that matters.
Yeah. Big playoff implications down at Lucas Oil State.
What are playoff implications?
Listen, I'll just say this. I'm gutted that I won't be there on Sunday. You can laugh all you want about the game, but doing this is great over Zoom, but I wish I could be there with you guys on Sunday. I really do. I'll enjoy the football though.
Yeah, you'll enjoy it better than we will. I'll never forget going into the 2014 season. Nobody saw that disaster coming more than JD. I don't know. I mean, it's not like any of us thought they were a great team, but they had playoff hopes. And I remember him saying this to me like in August. He's like, "Oh, this is going to be a shit show." He's like, "This is going to be like to a level like it really caught me off guard." And it was even worse than that. Is how it played out. Like, I don't know how he saw that coming, but he knew. So it just, everything we've said about him, he was also a heck of a reporter, covered the team and knew everything. He wasn't the one predicting 13-3 Super Bowl in the 2019. Although I'd like to go back and look at his prediction. I'm sure he was still kind of optimistic.
Thanks for the laugh. Oh, there you go.
I'm trying. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Love you all. If you've made it this far listening, it's incredible. This is like 2.5 hours, but I think we all needed it. So thank you. And that's all I got. Good night. Love you, JD.